From one thing, know 10,000 things. Miyamoto Musashi. Book of Five Rings. One of my favorite books of all time and one of my favorite quotes of all time. And the reason is because what it really communicates is that mastery over one thing and fundamental understanding over one thing carries over to many things. So, in that light, this video is not going to be a cookie cutter explanation of a few prompts that you can use to achieve one thing. What it's going to be is a set of rules to give you a fundamental understanding of a way to consistently and effectively, and most importantly, quickly prompt AI towards your goals. No more hallucinations, no more pulling out your hair trying to figure out why your prompt is going wrong. Instead, you're just going to be able to get the output you need every single time. So, without further ado, let's dive into the 5 rules that are going to help you unlock advanced list building techniques to improve deliverability and response rates. And ultimately, coupled with a great lead magnet, actually get some awesome sales calls. So, from one thing, let's know 10,000 things. Much like a professional athlete, where you see them, incredible at tennis, but also able to have the footwork to defend someone in basketball or play soccer, or the hand-eye coordination to throw a baseball, Athleticism is one thing and it becomes 10,000 things. So that's the theme of this video. And let's dive in. Be sure to stick around to rule number 5 because that is going to be the most important rule to finding success. So you guys know me, I'm a clay nut. And in order to do this as effectively as possible with your sales and your outreach and your lead generation, as well as your list building, dude, just centralize it into Clay. It's going to be $150 a month to get started. Don't worry about the credit amount, okay? The credits don't matter. I rarely even use credits. All Clay is a centralized database with a bunch of APIs and Clayagent for us that are non-technical to be able to scrape whatever we want off the internet in order to create sick outreach campaigns. Excuse me. So here's a few use cases for AI. And really what AI is you're just scraping something and then taking action on that thing with AI in order to produce something better to use in your campaigns or to split your list. So Clayagent is just handling the scraping and the AI at the same time so you don't have to be a programmer. Now, what is this going to let you do? You can parse large volumes of text to find a single keyword. Say you're trying to only target companies that use HubSpot. Well, maybe you want to find out if there's a HubSpot form on their website, right? If you want to find companies that use Senja, maybe you want to find out if your list of agencies has Powered by Senja on their website. And then you're like, oh, hey, these guys could use a testimonial tool, and I'm going to tell you why it's better than Senja. Or really, my favorite use case, and this is a little secret for any startup out there. If you are a startup and you're trying to penetrate your market, you don't want to email everybody. Really, what you want to start with is the people that are most likely to use your tool, and that's people already using a tool just like it. So what do? Well, we go to G2, we scrape the reviews of a competitor tool, and then using the reviews, we have AI take action on it to identify the common things that people dislike about that tool. We then scrape LinkedIn. We scrape their followers. We scrape their Twitter followers. We check, built with if they're on built with, but it's not always 100%. And we take those lists and we send them targeted copy based on those reviews to be like, hey, here's all the things that we know Senja sucks at and that we do better. Senja is just an example. I love Senja, but just an example. So that brings us into rule 1. Rule number 1 is define what you want. It sounds simple enough, but just don't overcomplicate it. This is the easiest rule. Tell it what you want it to do at a baseline and the context that it's going to be basing its output off of. Now, what's the context? Well, if you're using Clay, that context can likely be information that's in a row that you got from a database like Clutch, GetLatka. For me, most recent list building, SteamDB, actually, just random information about video games or their publishers. And with that information, AI is going to take action on it. So you're saying, hey, use this to do this. Use this to do this. That's probably a better name for the rule, to be honest. From there, we start to get a bit more complicated. And, by the way, you're going to have to stick around to rule 5 because rule 5 is going to be the most important piece of the puzzle. And if you're enjoying my videos, be sure to subscribe because one, I appreciate all of you for watching. And two, I hope that you're getting a lot of value out of this. And if you want more value in the future, please hit that subscribe button. So, rule 2, tell AI exactly what you don't want. Now, this is actually far more important, surprisingly, than telling it what you do want. Because the problem with AI is that it's a huge, brain, basically, right? Large language model, just a ton of synapses firing. It knows everything. It's multidisciplinary. Really, it's like if you took a first year bachelor's degree program from every single department in a school and you shoved it into one room together. And you're asking the question, and they're all alpha males that are like, oh my God, I got to answer this question. I have to prove myself. Instead, what you want to do is you want to narrow the question. So you want to eliminate as many of those other bachelor's guys trying to impress you as possible. And, for argument's sake, you're probably a damsel in distress as well to make this more believable. But don't ever say, I never claim to be good at analogies. So in practice, what is telling the AI exactly what you don't want? In practice, this is what it looks like. So in our original prompt here, we're using the information provided to classify the company's industry. And there's actually like a little red herring in this that we're going to identify later as we move on, or maybe you've already identified it. But in practice, after rule 2, what does it look like? So we've told it what we want and what to base it off of. Now we need to tell what we don't want. We do not want the output of the service they provide or the industry they sell to. Be specific and select a sub-industry, not a generic industry like SaaS, imported. Only reference info on their homepage, not their blog or anything else. Now, why would we say that? Well, if we're scraping from their domain could have a ton of information, and we could be giving it way too much information, one, for it to parse, and two, their blog could contain stuff that's totally irrelevant. It could be about their funding round, which could mention a bunch of other companies with a bunch of other distinct industries, VCs, private equity, you name it, and that could dilute the quality of our outputs. So really, to summarize rule 2, just tell it what you don't want to see and be a little bit more specific of what you do want to see. Rule 3, be excruciatingly specific with your inputs. Now, what does this mean? So if you've used GPT, you know that any AI, you know that the most exciting thing people like to talk about is context windows. Context window. 100K tokens, 200K tokens. This is awesome, but we're not trying to spend $500 to personalize 1,000 leads. What we're trying to do is get awesome information for as cheap as possible. So to prompt effectively, and to reduce hallucinations, you want to reduce the amount of information you're shoving into the context window for each of your prompts. So how can we reduce that information? Well, there's a great way to reduce that information, and that's to not use the domain in our current prompt, right? So instead, we could use an SEO summary, right, from their Google SEO snippet. We could use their LinkedIn bio. We could use their Twitter bio if we have it. You'll get a lot of different information depending on the database you're pulling from, but oftentimes you're going to get a summary of what the business does, and using that summary, you'll be able to find the industry. This is going to be more effective because it's going to be cheaper. It's going to reduce the context that we're giving it, and it's going to make the context that we do give it more relevant. So whenever you're prompting, rule 3, be very mindful of the information that you're actually feeding it. Is it too much? Which leads us to which leads us to the second half of rule 3, which is how can we work around this? So say you have a ton of information. Say you've scraped the website. What I would recommend doing instead, if we were going to go the website scraping route, is to scrape the website, have AI summarize the information on the website, or better yet, if you have a uniform website like a database, get it to use a formula to narrow the amount of information from that long page. So say it's that, keyword home and keyword vanilla, I don't know, are, outside of the information that you actually want, and they're consistent variables to the structure of these web pages. You can just be like, hey, I want everything between these two words. Pull those values. Clay will go, make the formula with AI, or you can use GPT to make the formula inside Google Sheets, and you can pull that information out. Boom, done. Love it. Now, after doing that, you can summarize based on that information, get even tighter, and then you can use your actual prompt to get the industry that you want. In our case, a sub-industry. Which leads us to rule number 4. Narrowing the possibilities of your output. So you can see a kind of consistent theme here, which is that it really much like list building. If you're familiar with list building, it's a process of elimination. You know, you've got 100,000 businesses, and then you're like, I don't really want to talk to the businesses with 1 to 10 employees, or, you know, it's really anything in life, even dating, right? Dating is a process of elimination. That's why you have swipe right and swipe left on these dating apps. Not that I've used one. I just got engaged. No, I've never had to use one. I'm a lucky man. Met the love of my life in high school. But, you know, I've got friends, I swear. And, you know, I see them swiping left or whatever direction is no to 95% of the people they see. They're going through a process of elimination. That's what you're doing with list building. That's what you're doing with this. So rule number 4 is to narrow the possibilities of your output. Even more importantly, it's about defining exactly what's going to happen when you get an output that you don't want. Now, what does this mean? It's kind of like putting a fail safe in place to make sure that AI kind of stops what it's doing and doesn't output nonsense, which means less hallucinations, which means less frustration for you. So it's really simple. All we have to do is give the AI an alternative to outputting something it isn't confident in. Why is this so important? Because if you have a standard bad output, then it's going to be 100 times easier to parse the data afterwards. Imagine if your standard bad output is unknown or false. You're going to be able to just say, hey, everything false, make blank, or turn into this, or if false, split into new campaign, right? Now you're splitting your lists. You have a general campaign, you have a more targeted campaign. You can see how knowing how to prompt AI, knowing how to use it effectively will help you build better campaigns and be as creative as possible. That's the only limitation when it comes to AI, when it comes to scraping, when it comes to outbound, creativity. So in practice, what does this look like? We've got our original prompt. If, using if here, and you'll notice AI loves if then statements. It loves programmatic language because it's logical. So be logical. If you can't come up with an industry classification that you're over 90% confident in, just output none. And we might say none and nothing else. And nothing else. If you can come up with a sub-industry, then output the sub-industry and only the sub-industry. This should be 2 to 3 words maximum, no periods, no quotation marks. So we've said, hey, it can only be this long. The output needs to be formatted like this. And, you know, AI loves outputting quotation marks. So please focus hard and do a good job. I believe in you. This is a tip from Eric Nawalski. He believes that being nice to AI tends to yield better results. I can't remember if I saw a proper study on this, but give it a go. You know, when AI takes over, I definitely want to be on their good side. So the final thing here in terms of getting the output you want is to provide examples of outputs you want. So here are examples of the type of outputs I would like to see. And this can be laid out like this. You can avoid doing this because of Rule 5, the super special rule. But if you want to get a head start and you're confident in your prompt, I would recommend adding the examples to get to your ideal prompt much faster. And speaking of ideal prompt, Rule 5 is iterate and add constraints. The number one thing you can take away from this entire video is that AI and prompting is an iterative process. There's no perfect prompt. You have a very specific output you want, and no one else is going to want that output. So as a result, and as a result of AI, again, being this ocean of dudes that are trying to impress the damsel in distress with all their knowledge from different facets of life, you're going to have to iterate and constrain and look at the bad output and try to say, and try to add, do not do this, do not output this, do not blah, 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 and slowly get to your perfect 99% accurate prompt. And then obviously have that fail safe in place to ensure that you get a none response where necessary. So if you would like assistance doing this, you can always book a call with myself. If you would like to do high level AI list building, mapping your market, having all sorts of personalizations, like if you work, for instance, like a company we just recently worked with, they only wanted to target the lead developers of single player games. Good luck finding that in a database. If you're looking to target hard to target people and book tons of sales calls for your business, feel free to book a call below. And if you want to do it for yourself, heck, you might get some value out of a consultation. So really the final framework summarized for you is to be specific, but not overdrawn. Tell it exactly what you don't want. It's super important. It's a big brain. Okay. You got to dissect and slice into the exact spot you want, like a lobotomy. Well, maybe not like a lobotomy. You don't want to break it. Be excruciatingly specific with your inputs. So that means that you want to lower the amount of context you're giving it to make sure that the context you do give it is great context. You want to narrow the possibility of your output, meaning that you want to give it conditions to what it will output, okay? If this, then that. If this, then that. Or if you can't find this, then output this. Or here's an example of my ideal output. And finally, you need to take the 10 to 20 tests that you run each time and output exactly what you need. Now, the use cases of this are infinite. You've learned one thing, put it into practice in 10,000 different ways. But before you go, I'll tell you one of my absolute favorite ways. My absolute favorite way to use this is when I'm getting information from one database and putting it through Apollo, I lose that information. So one of my favorite things to do is to just use AI to remerge those two lists, leaving, empty columns for the business's contact information we couldn't find. So we can take those businesses, split them out, and actually put them into a different database to find contact information there. But more importantly, be able to keep that specific information from, databases like Clutch, GetLacta, like, one of my most recent clients, Steam database scraping, the type of game summaries that are there. Be able to keep this information super important to be able to connect to your prospect and show you've done your research, whether cold calling, cold emailing, or DMing. So I hope all this helps. If you found this valuable, leave a comment, subscribe, and feel free to ask questions. I'm here to help.